Kane
Yeah,
moment.
Kane game. Actually had back-to-back Kane games.
Oh, really?
Uh,
What the heck?
there are two people in this lobby that had just played a previous Kane game in, and then two of them said this is their third Kane game of today. So I don't know
Huh.
what was going
Interesting. That
on.
kind of day.
There
What
seems
the
like a
hell?
bug in the code.
Yeah. I played two King games the last 2 days, and I have forgotten that both of them were Kane lobbies until like 5-1.
Yeah, there was a Fortune player in a Kane game I played yesterday that was like, "Why didn't anyone tell me I was playing on Kane?" He had
Oh,
like a
it's gonna be
pretty
a
capped
Yone.
board, but was like 5 HP at the end. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got the Yone out of the
Alrighty.
box.
Yep. Yeah, this is definitely the kind of stuff. I think it's very worth experimenting a lot with the new lines that are opened up, because you find the one right
Mm.
line. You find Fishbone Senna, and maybe that puts you through the next round. So, alrighty. I mean, this is a great opener. Some double Darius. Yeah, although I feel like Yoni without items can sometimes feel really bad. So I, you know.
Yeah. So then I get Grim Harvest. So I'm like, okay, I'm definitely going Yone.
hmm So this is one of those situations where I think it's we were talking about in terms of being willing to look at stuff like Kindred as a carry here, and like willing to itemize them in lines that maybe you wouldn't traditionally. Like this, in my mind, this rod is already a Kindred item, and this bow and this cloak are probably
Mm-hmm.
Yone items. And I think because it can be like very awkward to itemize otherwise, but if you have that mindset where like you're willing to take a Kindred item off carousel here, even like if you're willing to make this like Nashor's Rabadon's Kindred, or like Nashor's Morello's Kindred or something, like your game will probably go like pretty decently well, just because it's a very good unit. A little harder to slam something right now,
So
though,
it's
for
kind of
sure.
yeah, I was kind of confused even in the early game. Like the more traditional, previously it'd be like you're trying to go like Malphite, Yorick with like Kha'Zix, but now that there's this like bruiser variant, I'm like, I don't know if I should be holding these bruisers or sticking with maybe what might be a stronger board right now.
Yeah, I would say just play what your strongest board is for the moment. I think in general it's probably best to not worry too much about, because I feel like a lot of the high impact bruisers you're just going to find on 8 anyways, right? You're going to find your like Silas and your Galio, and then you can find Rek'Sai again fairly easily. So I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
worry too much about it. I would just focus more so on making sure that you are playing your best board.
Okay.
What we talked about in terms of like early game being more important now, and like more so. I remember what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna say. Okay, it's a lot harder to. Yeah, I had a brain fart, but we're back. So it's a lot harder to find a win condition later in the game right now and to stabilize off of it. I would say, right? So like for example, it's really hard to kind of like full open to 8 and then roll down all your gold and just like find your footing all of a sudden out of nowhere, right? You're like losing super hard and then you just like start winning because you put together this win condition all of a sudden. It feels very hard to do that right now. It feels very, very hard to keep up with people who have established their win condition early and then played, as in how their board plays a fight and then played towards it the whole game, right? Like it's so much easier to like right now. It's so much easier to like make a Rage Blade, play a board mid game that plays around Rage Blade, and then do really well off of that because you're just naturally getting stronger than it is to like full open and then get into like Rage Blade Ash all of a sudden. I don't know why this is a thing right now. Maybe it's just like four costs are like relatively hard to hit right now, but like that natural curve of like you find your win condition, you build it around it early, and you play it from there. You find your footing early, and you just like kind of keep up. Feels so much better, like so much easier than trying to like do that open to 8, open to 9 thing. Not open to 8 or open to 9 per se, but like more or less econ focus and to 8, and then like you just like make a board out of nothing basically out of scraps. Yeah, I feel like I've
Mm-hmm.
had such a hard time. I don't know if you feel this too, but like the earlier I've, and hopefully this is actually making sense as it comes out of my mouth, but like finding the way I want to play a fight early, finding like the Rabadon Shojin on my Zyra, or like the Rage Blade on like my backline unit, whatever early, then like finding that strong board sooner. The transition is like 30 times easier into the 4 cost stuff. I think it's mostly just because we talked about in terms of like a 2-star 2 cost or a 2-star 3 cost with like a 1-star 4 cost often being more stable than like the boards who go fast 8 and have like 1 2-star 4 cost, like 1 1-star 4 cost. It feels more stable than that. It feels like you already have an idea what you're doing. The big thing maybe, and this is part of it too, is that you're more willing to take combat augments the more you know what you're doing already. In my opinion, at least, right? Like if you already know that you're playing a ramping fight, you're more willing to take something that was more combat oriented than if you have no idea what it is you're playing yet. So if you don't know what it is you're playing yet, you want to say, okay, well, I'll just make money and I'll go to 8, right? I'll take rich get richer or whatever. But if you're more willing to like be in that spot where you have an idea of what you're doing and you're just taking elements that support that immediately and slamming items that support that immediately, then the transition is so much easier and like you just are so much more stable as a consequence of like already have, and hopefully this makes sense, but you're so much more stable all just because you already have an idea of what it is you're playing for and you already have an idea of what it is that like you want out of a fight, and you've taken things that make that better already. And I think it is less that like straight up saying or that like necessarily establishing your win condition earlier automatically makes your game easier, but it's more so that like because you establish how you want to play a fight sooner in the game, you have set yourself up to be stronger sooner in the game by like again taking like combat augments and stuff. There's some food for thought, I guess, that the earlier you establish how you want to play a fight, really the better right now. It feels like it makes the game much easier.
You're kind of cutting in and out. I'm not sure if that was my internet or yours.
Oh, sorry about that. The TLDR was
Okay,
basically,
I
if you
think
can
that's
hear me
better.
now. Okay, the
Yeah.
TLDR is basically that the earlier you find how you want to play your fight, the better, and it will help you make a lot of a lot of like high impact decisions sooner in the game, right? Like taking combat augments, slamming items sooner, and it's why it's like so much better to play on like 2 costs and 3 costs right now than it has been previously because it feels very very hard I think to get to 8 and then just like stabilize out of nowhere, right? Like it's hard to like get to 8 and find an Ash 2, Ornn 2, Annie 2, whatever. But it's much easier to just like get there a little bit later, but like playing around the Nephelios or something soon, or like a I don't know, I
Hmm.
guess Sivir even maybe the Sivir's a little bit mech compared to like an Nephelios, but you know what I mean. It's like the sooner you establish that and the sooner you like start taking resources or allocating resources to supporting that, really it feels like the easier your game will get, which hasn't felt like that in a while, so it's a good thing.
Yep. So going back to the game, I what are your thoughts on pre-leveling here? I like lost the first two fights, but like I was thinking I can't make 10 anyway, and then I can throw in a bruiser, like I can throw in the Aatrox, and especially with Umbral, the extra shield should just make my team a lot stronger, and then it gives me higher odds to get Yone too.
Yeah, I think pre-living is awesome here. I think even just like the Yone 2 thing, you're it is a fantastic idea. I think the odds to get Yone
Okay.
2 make it really worth. You also have better Kindred odds if you're thinking about rerolling Kindred at all in this spot. Yeah, just it's
Hmm.
definitely the right idea to pre-level here.
Okay. And then itemize, I have rod open, bow open, cloak. Because I have the Kindred 2, are you thinking like Morello with that rod? Or I guess I could
I think
also
there's
take a tier for adaptive for Kindred, or I could just go for Yone item.
so I think there's a couple ways to play this. You did just lose 2, so I think the couple ways you can play this are you can go for the Yone item. So where you did just lose 2, I think you obviously did pre-level. If you hit Yone 2, then you can probably start trying to win, but otherwise you can probably just keep losing. And if you keep losing, it's not a bad idea to just try to set yourself up item wise for stage 3. And this is maybe a little bit harkens back to what we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about in terms of how the current meta affects my like item decision making more than it affects my unit decision making. Where I think in some world if you were 3 win here, I would take Rabadons every time, Rabadons or Nashers, and just like slam it on the Kindred and play strong
Mm-hmm.
around that because it's your objectively best item, right? Because you have Kindred 2. Where you just lost 2, I think you can. I think the highest like cap item for your stage 3 is probably actually tier here, like open tier, and you don't go adaptive. You just I think adaptive actually has a weird breakpoint with Kindred if I'm not mistaken. So you don't go adaptive and you just greed
Mm-hmm.
your items through the end of the stage and then ideally lose 2 more. And then on 3-1, 3-2, you see your augment, you see what items you have, and then you make like some kind of mana item plus like some kind of raw item on Kindred slash like maybe a couple of Yone items, and you just spike really really hard there. I think the third option is that you're planning more to play around with the Yone spike on stage 3, and maybe this is if you're planning to roll on 3-2, and then you take something that goes well on Yone, like a sword maybe, right? Because I think you're open cloak, open cloak, open rod, open bow, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
So like I think like three
Okay.
cost
Yeah.
sword or like 3 cost tier here go very hard. Yeah. With tier
Okay.
being a little
I
bit
think
better for not
I
wanting to roll.
right. So I think if I wanted to go the tier option, I probably shouldn't have pre-leveled, right? Like because that's
So I
really
think
playing
even
for
the
much later.
I would say well I think the tier option was more so for playing for like early stage 3 because I think it's tough, right? Because like I think you're basically trying to give yourself the best chance possible to get strong on stage 3, and I think pre-leveling does give you that,
Mm.
right? Because you have if you hit Yone 2, if you haven't hit Yone 2, then you just win 2 fights without slamming an item. That's awesome, right? If you just like win 3, 2, 5, and 2, 6 without slamming a single item, and then you just also get like to make items on 3, 1, and you get to be really strong throughout all stage 3. That's totally fine, right? So it gives you a really good chance to get stronger. You can also hit more kindreds again if you want to play for the kindred roll angle. And then what tier does is that sets you up really well for a really strong stage 3, because you're gonna it's only the spike's only 2 rounds away basically, right? Because you get some kind of mana item, and then all of a sudden you're super. You could go Shiv as well if you really wanted to win a fight, and it'd be totally fine, but less good. But then the sword is more so for playing. I'd say the sword is actually more for like the later game play, because ideally with sword, what you'd probably do is you'd actually even like unless you did want to roll for the Yone and just like they get Yone 2 on state on like early stage 3, potentially losing a lot of gold for it, then you'd like wait the spike to like level 7, and then like look for Yone 2 and Kane at the same time, like play for the 4 Reaper, like double Yone item spike. Where the tier is like
Mm-hmm.
the tier is saying that you want to spike on 3-1. I would say the Yone item is saying you want to spike either like really hard on 3-2 by spending money, or on like 3-5 by not spending any money, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say
Yeah.
like tier feels really good here for losing the next 2 rounds. But then again, if you hit the One 2, it's not the end of the world, because it means you probably just win anyways, and then you're just like you're still in the same spot, but you just won 2 fights instead. You don't have to slam any items. You're not forced to.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we take those.
I hit.
Yep, huge. I mean
That
that's
definitely
great.
paid off.
Yeah, and you can see how here too, right? Like, let's say you had Yone 2 with no items slammed at all. If you're like in an amazing spot as well, because if you lose this fight with Yone 2, then you just get to stack the last fight and you're 4 loss. And if you win this fight with Yone 2, no items, that means you probably are going to win the last fight too, because it just means you're really strong, which you are very strong, right? Like BT didn't really change this
Mm-hmm.
fight at all. So you could like technically go for the slightly higher
Yeah.
cap. But that is to say that like this is really good for saying I'm just going to play on Kindred 2 for most of the game, and then just like focus more on like rolling for the Yone, I would say.
Mm-hmm. By the way, when I was scouting just then, there's a Keepers player playing Yone who I just played, and then there's someone that
Titan's one,
selected
yep.
Reaper emblem. So there's, yeah, so it's 3-way contested Yone
So this is one of those spots where I think we were
on
talking about where
Kane.
you have to just play around. Yeah, well, I think you have to just play around getting to level 8 and getting 4 Reaper in, and like playing Kindred to Yone 2, more than likely.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. That's huge. I think the big thing
I
here is
couldn't
you
tell
probably
which
want to
one was
drop the
stronger.
Darius,
Is
right?
the
Oh, I see. Because you have 4 Umbral. Gotcha.
Yeah, is 4 Umbral stronger, or I assume 4 Umbral was
Uh,
stronger. I'm
yeah,
not
I
sure.
would say
I
it's.
guess
I
getting an
think you do
extra
want to
item
keep
on
the
Yone
Ornn.
would be good, but the
I think you ideally want
so
to play
so
4
like
Umbral
it's
than
fine to
bubble
lose a
4
little
Ornn
econ.
there. Yep. Yeah, and again, this is especially this is like the. If you want to pause for a second, we can talk about it, because there's a couple of reasons why.
Yeah.
First and foremost, it's Kane Galaxy, right? So every bit of HP matters quite a bit more than every bit of econ, and you already know you're contested 2 ways. So the chance of you hitting Yone 3 or Kindred 3 are not high, right? So that means you have to make sure you're playing towards your other spikes and your other outs. And so I think that your best chance here for getting really strong for a lot of your mid game at least, right? If you're playing four Umbral with like 2 Dryad, 2 Behemoth, and you have an Ornn on your board, you are freaking strong, right? For quite a while. So you can even just level here in that situation, because again, you're in a spot where you're, because this is the kind of spot normally you'd play for fourth, in my opinion, right? You don't have a super high cap probably, because you're
Mm-hmm.
contested a couple of ways. You have Yone 2, but you're never gonna be able to go 3-star with it. So what you do is you leverage it to get a lot of extra HP throughout your mid game. And so by selling the Ornn and selling your strongest boards, you lose out on a lot of that opportunity to save the extra HP. And especially where it's Kane Galaxy, playing for fourth here actually can mean like playing for first or second, because if you save that much extra HP, you can have such a high gap, or such a high you know such a good amount of HP over your opponents, that you can just like get a bunch of extra placements for free. So I think you definitely want to play for your strongest board in this kind of spot, because the money is not going to do too much for you, right? Because you sell Ornn to make money, but all you're going to use that for is probably to find an Ornn again later. Unless you want to like really play for the bruiser version of the board, but you don't need to, right? You can just play for
Yeah.
what is essentially a very strong board right now.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is me also learning the Yone line. it's like I think I was tunneling up pretty hard on just trying out the bruiser variant because I haven't really played it.
Yeah,
But
that's fair.
and I guess that's like where you can play towards the behemoths, you can play towards the bruisers, or you can even go heavenly, uh, and like
You just want to play what you
figuring out
have.
when are the right
Exactly.
spots for each.
Yep. Yeah,
Right.
you want
So
to play around
definitely
whatever it is
hitting
that you
the
have.
early Ornn, I should just play. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because the early one makes your board super strong
Makes
for sure.
sense.
And again, like I think the big part of that kind of decision is that just the ideology of this spot, where it's like again, you're two way contested. It feels bad as it's in stage two, but you're not winning this game. Like very likely you're not winning this game in a
Yeah.
normal encounter just because you're two way contested, right? And that's okay. Because maybe
Mm.
like that Orn turns into a 10 streak, and then all of a sudden you go fast 9 and you find a way to win the game, right? Sure, maybe. But especially on Kane, like the game's not going to go long enough to get there. So the cool about Kane too is that like saving the HP does mean that maybe you just win the game because you have so much extra HP. So it's just one of those things where it's important to make sure that you are really focusing on like the macro aspect of like, okay, can I win this game or not? Slash, if I can't win this game, how do I make sure that this game is a good game still? How do I when can I spike this game? When are my like big advantage pieces of advantage this game? And then you make sure that you are strong when you can be strong, right? Because you could be really strong right now, and instead you're like kind of you're strong, but you're not like really strong, right? Is the big thing.
Hmm. Okay. So as far as augments here, heavy hitters, I think Yone 2 is above the 1500 threshold, but without being able to hit Yone 3, it seems like kind of mid. And
Yeah, it
then
does seem kind of mid.
Ascensions doesn't seem that great. And then Epic Plus is like, that's okay. Like maybe I can luck into a Yone 3, but seems unlikely. So it's like, seems like none of these are great. I guess
Yeah, I
Epic can
would
help me just
probably
like level up in tempo faster.
I can, yeah. I'd say you either want to do that with Epic or you want to just re-roll it and then pray it's something really good and then re-roll Ascension after. I think Epic's probably better than Ascension though, so you
Okay.
probably re-roll both though in a perfect world. Magic Wand is
Uh-huh.
actually fine here to be honest. It's actually like totally fine here.
Oh, for the Kindred.
You go
Okay.
Rabadons, yeah, and you
And
spike
then
because the thing is,
you would just slam
you
Rabadons.
spike here and you get Yone item of Carousel and you're super strong all of stage three, right?
Hmm. Okay, so this goes back to like, especially on Kane and then uncontested, just play a strong stage three.
Yeah, because this sets you up. This is actually we've talked about item
Okay.
philosophy stuff in stage two, right? And how if you're playing a strong stage two, you want to set it up so that you can slam like two full items coming off of stage two carousel. So if you can, let's say you want like let's say you have like bow, cloak, crick glove or something, and so you're like, okay, well I'll slam last whisper, then I have open cloak. Cloak's pretty hard to make a full item out of, I think, in that situation often because you can make a friendly item if you're lucky, but like there's not you can make like Declar or Gargoyle or something, but they're not like amazing, and they don't go in the same unit, right? We talked a lot about how it's important to keep items in the same unit. And so in that situation, what you can do often is you go like Runans plus open Crick Glove. Let's say you want to play very tempo-y, right? You would go Runans plus open Crick Glove. This would be if you have something like you said with Escort Quest, where you may want to make sure you're winning fights. So you build your items in a way where you have access to that extra spike on at the middle of stage two, where like you can make two full items on the same unit rather than making like either only one full item or two items on like different units. And so being able to go like Runans plus like Guard Breaker or Runans plus IE or something on the same unit is going to give you a lot of value that will generally push you toward towards a 5 streak that you might not get otherwise. Similar thing here where like this frees you up so much item economy wise, where if you take this magic wand, you get Rabadons immediately, which spikes you a ton. The AP is not even that bad on like the Yone and shit. It's not amazing, but it's not terrible. And then it frees you up to get a Yone item off carousel. So you're not just getting the spike of the 18 AP. You're not just getting the spike of the Rabadons. You're getting the spike of also getting that second Yone item, which is really really important for keeping yourself strong in a spot where
Mm.
like you ostensibly again want to be playing very very tempo-y just because you're two way contested and that feels kind of bad. So
And game ends early. How
yeah,
about
end game
between
wins. Yeah,
Magic
it's
Wand and Harm
certainly yeah.
Assist?
I would go Magic Wand here. Yeah, Magic Wand makes your
Okay.
current board like a lot stronger
Okay.
than Harvest does.
So I was not thinking through like the whole thing with heavy hitters. That was like a hindsight
Yeah, that's
realization.
totally fine. Yeah, yeah. I feel like it's hard to see heavy hitters and not be like, oh yeah, it's time. Especially when like you're because at this point,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're still considering you rerolling Yone 3, but like most people would be considering it still. Like it's reasonable to be considering it still.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
for
I'm just I was on autopilot and like, oh, I'm playing a Yone game. Heavy hitters, great.
Yeah. No, for sure.
But yeah, I
For sure,
forgot
for
I
sure.
was three-way contested. And particularly given that I'm first in the lobby right now, like going back to your point, if I just picked Magic Wand and had a strong
You wouldn't
stage
lose a
three
fight for
tempo,
like I don't think you'd lose a fight till the end of stage 4, right? Because like your Rabadons on your
yeah,
Kindred, you definitely went out the end of stage 3, and then you just get 4 Reaper in on 7 or 8, and you have Kindred 2 with really good items, Yone 2 with really good items, and 4 Reaper, and you are just like pounding the lobby. And then you
yeah,
probably have like a 20-30 HP gap on at least the bot. You never bought 4 in that situation ever because they will be dying compared to you, and then you're like guaranteed top 4 in like a normal game. So it's just yeah, and then I'm sure this made you also want to like even more so reroll Yone. So it's tough for sure. Like having the little things that definitely bait you a little bit.
yeah. It does help that I got the lesser duplicator, but still not that great given that there's so
Yeah,
many
right. This is the
people.
kind of thing where like now you're like, okay, well I should probably roll for Yone here, but it's actually not going to do too much. Like low key, you could just drop this shit right on that Yorick, and it'd probably be more worthwhile than holding on to it. This is the kind of playstyle, right? That like the one we're talking about. Not necessarily the one that's happening right now, but where like it got punished quite a bit by it got like nerfed quite a bit by them lowering player damage. But it's still definitely a viable way to play the game, especially in the current state of the game. Because I think it's way more consistent, and it keeps you a little
Mm,
bit less centered on that like roll down super hard on 4-1 and just pray to God that you're the guy who hits Lilia 2 Annie 2 or like like
right.
Cinder 2 Warren 2 or whatever. I was close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I imagine I feel like you're probably gonna try to roll on 7 here, or are you gonna go right to 8? I guess it depends on. I would totally have forgotten already that it's Kane Galaxy, and I would have just rolled on 7. So going 8 here is definitely better. So I I
Yeah.
would have I would have like started like slow rolling, like doopy doopy doop. Just gonna look for Kane for
I
Yone
forget
3.
all the time that I'm playing on Kane. A lot of times I just forget what portal I'm playing on when it's relevant.
Yeah, I feel that.
So combat caster or keepers?
Hard to say. I think they're probably both about right. I mean, they both do what you want, which is just give you some tankiness. So
Yeah. I feel like combat caster is just a little bit easier, so you don't have to like worry about positioning.
yeah, I'd agree with that. This is where the game gets a little awkward, because like especially with everyone playing the same board, because you're all just like you're all playing like literally the exact same board at this point.
Yeah. That Silas won with Reaper was pretty strong.
Went crazy. Yeah, he does a lot of damage. Does a lot of damage.
Yep. Here's the other Reaper.
Here's the guy hit Lee too. Not bad. Not bad. It's
Yeah,
like
the
pretty hard to
Kindred
be strong
stealing.
here now, right?
Yeah. I was like
Kindred
eyeing the
pops.
Yone. Yeah, that Kindred. Seems like Kindred's
I'm
just
like
stronger than the Yone too.
yeah, no, I'm like fairly confident that Kindred 2 is better than Yone 2 in the current state of the game. Same thing with like I feel like Zyro 2 is like absolutely bonkers in like a very very broken 2 cost as well. Like Kindred 2 just seems so gross in a lot of situations right now.
Yeah. Like you basically want what blue buff Nashers and like a damage item or Morello.
Yeah, Morellos, Rabadons, whatever. But I think the blue thing like blue buff anti heal AP, blue buff AP like attack speed. Or
Yeah.
you go like blue buff red buff Rabadons, that'd be really good as well, something like that. Like Dashers, Rabadons, whatever.
Yeah, it also feels like you really need 4 Reaper for Yone to really do anything.
Yeah, I agree. Like, Kindred feels way more self sufficient, right? You see this fight, right? Like you have 4 Umbral, and it's still that Kindred like doing all the damage with the 2 items.
Yeah.
I think melee units might just kind of suck, low key, but hard to tell.
So I hit the Yone 3, but I didn't find a single cane.
It feels like okay. I don't know if this is just me. I feel like this is like the name of the like the it's been going on so much this set where like you roll down for like a specific forecast and you just don't see any of it. I feel like it happens
Yeah,
a lot,
that's
like
happened to me
a
so
lot.
many times.
Yeah, feels really weird. Yeah, no cane here is definitely not what you want to see. Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff that happened in this game really is just like being more willing to play more aggressively earlier in the game and just like I'm not gonna say like no hitting not hitting Kane was really kind of fucked, but I mean like even if you might go like fifth here instead of fourth, even if you instead of like I don't know if you're going sixth or seventh, but you might be able to go like fifth here, even like with missing Kane if you save that extra 20 HP ish or like hit people for more damage as well,
Mhm.
having a little bit stronger of like an early stage four potentially.
I was really surprised I lost this battle. That was against like a ghost Lilia Morgana board too.
Yeah,
I was
no
like,
four Reaper
how did I
definitely
go
hurts a lot.
sixth in this game?
I think so. I think it's twofold, right? First off, like obviously the line you took, you low rolled the cane. Not hitting the cane hurt a ton, right? I think you
Yeah.
probably like go fifth or fourth probably if you hit cane. But two, again, I think is that like being more willing to say like, okay, the money doesn't matter as much this game, and like the items matter maybe less this game too, and just being willing to like very heavily invest in like your mid game and saying like, okay, my stage three spike is probably mostly around Kindred more often than not. Unless I want to roll for the Yone. Um, being willing to slam an augment that like more so helps Kindred than Yone is important there and like frees up your item economy a bit. Yeah, it's funny it's a Kane game because like a lot of the stuff that like helps you do well in a Kane game there actually just helps you do well in a normal game as well. Just because it's one of those games like you,
Mm,
you really can't win out. So
yeah. Okay. And then so then especially playing around that kindred and then that for I
the
think that was
Orin
in
was
that
the big one too,
stage.
right?
Oh, right. The Orn.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
think you just there are a couple opportunities where you missed playing towards like what would have been a really strong board to try to leave yourself more room to scale later. That you just didn't need that room to scale later because the likelihood is that you're not going to be able to get there.
Hmm. Okay.
Even
So
outside of a Kane game.
right. And then and then specifically for the kindred too, does the stage two carousel like picking that tier. I got lucky I think on one of the creep rounds to like get the blue buff, but if I really wanted to have a strong stage three, it would be pick tier off of carousel on stage two to
Because
try
you
and
can go
get
like
blue buff
Shojin and
earlier.
Archangel or something as well, right? Like I think you got full blue buff off of creeps that round, but let's say you get full
Mm-hmm.
blue buff there, you just go blue buff Archangels, and it's not like it's that bad. It's not ideal, but it's still like blue buff plus AP. Then you just build like a tankier front line maybe and play like four Reaper with like tankier or four Bruiser or something.
Right.
You could make it work for sure. I think it's just that one's like I think you can definitely that one has more room for argument in terms of like whether you want to play for the Yone stuff or the Kindred stuff. I think I really believe that Kindred is like a better unit than Yone right now, and that's I think
Yeah.
more so why I would play around the Kindred. Also, you already have the Kindred too, so it was like a more consistent spike um, without
It
rolling
almost
if you
feels
didn't want to
like
roll.
yeah, it almost feels like Kindred is like the main carry in the mid game for this comp, and then you're
Yeah,
using Yone as an item holder for Kane, and then you're just
it does feel
moving
like that, doesn't it?
items over. And then it's like,
it
okay, if you luck into a Yone 3, then maybe you go for it. But it seems like it's just Yone is just not that
and
strong.
I like never want to move items from Kindred to Morgana right now too. Like four Reaper Kindred just feels better than Morgana. Like if I had like Shojin Morellos, that shit's staying on Kindred for me. I don't know. Like, it's
Yeah.
hard to want to get off of it. It's just it does so much damage. Yeah, it's similar thing with like Zyra, where like these two costs are just kind of taking over the game a little bit, in my opinion.
Hmm.
So
Okay. Cool.
cool.
Talk to you later then.
Peace.
Peace.